And so my preference would be that we actually properly fund our institutions with the right amount of oversight. I mean, I'm the last person to say, hey, take some money, go do whatever, and let's talk to you in 15 or 20 years. But when it comes to the Department of Education or FDA or whatever institution, I think the only way forward as far as anthropology and group psychology and sociology and all of these sciences take us is we need these institutions, but we need proper and correct oversight.
Well, we're back on the David Pakman show today. You guys know how much I love David Pakman, just being a little bit sarcastic there. I think he's snaky and sneaky and slippery and slimy personally. Today, as you heard, he's talking about properly funding our institutions, and again, he's just constantly, one of the things that really annoys me about him, he's constantly making these straw man arguments. Like, not many, nobody serious is saying, oh, we need to get rid of all our institutions. Maybe these libertarians say that sort of thing. We don't want any government. Yeah, that's not going to work. That's just stupid. Human beings form hierarchies and institutions, of course. The argument people are having now, for example, this idea of abolishing the Federal Department of Education in the United States, it's not some ideological thing, but like is the Federal Department of Education actually doing good or doing evil? Why do we even need it? Because because of the structure of the United States, each state has its own Department of Education. So therefore, what is the point of the Federal Department of Education? Well, it seems now, at least, the point has become to give money to individual states as long as those individual states follow the rules of the Federal Department of Education, which, as we know, have been are completely wokeified. They want to impose all sorts of DEI practices on the individual states, which that's one of the reasons so many people are against the Department of Education, including me. The other reason is just a waste. It doesn't do anything of any value whatsoever. I'm sure it provides a lot of jobs for bureaucrats. They don't think it's a waste. They think it's a good way to make a living. But in real life, no, I don't think it does anything useful. So let's David Pakman, he's going to be talking to another guy about this. Let's see where he takes it.
Tony, part of this Harvard youth poll says that confidence in public institutions continues to decline among young people. What do you think needs to happen to turn that around?
Well, a few things. Number one, these public institutions that have taken the trust of Americans and thrown it away need to be reevaluated in the amount of power that they hold. They need to be reevaluated in the structure with the unelected bureaucrats that staff a lot of these institutions. For example,
I was going to say, give us an example.
Right. So, for example, in my field, the Department of Education, which has governed by fiat over the last several decades, quite honestly, that has basically written all of these very weird and not scientifically backed rules as far as academia and education is concerned for states to receive education funding, that creates, quite honestly, a spaghetti bowl of laws and regulations that intertwine with each other and create a large mess. So when the system goes wrong and creates some type of backdoor regulatory flag that you have to jump hoops through, you lose a lot of trust in that institution. And so there needs to be a reevaluation of this fourth branch of the government, this administrative state, this Wilsonian idea that has been an abysmal failure in the United States.
David, your thoughts on that, your reaction?
Yeah, I don't. It won't shock you that I have a sort of different perspective than Tony generally as far as institutions go. I think that if we zoom way out, and I know that this is not the sexiest conversation, if we zoom way out at a very basic level, the larger society gets, the more we need to some degree, have institutions and institutions to which we can delegate some authority. And unfortunately, if you don't have that, what you have is a non-functional society. And so my preference would be that we actually properly fund our institutions with the right amount of oversight. I mean, I'm the last person to say, hey, take some money, go do whatever, and let's talk to you in 15 or 20 years. But when it comes to the Department of Education or FDA or whatever institution, I think the only way forward as far as anthropology and group psychology and sociology and all of these sciences take us is we need these institutions, but we need proper and correct oversight. They need to be adequately funded. And that's really the starting point for what are the most successful countries and ways of organizing ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. As I was saying earlier, nobody, David Pakman, is suggesting we don't need institutions and we don't need government agencies. We do need a certain amount of that. We need just enough, but not too much. And the United States, and certainly the United States with its federal bureaucracy, I think it's pretty clear it has way, way too much. And given the structure of the United States, where each state has quite a bit of power, each state should really have far more powers than it does, but that's another issue. We all know that we need institutions and a government in order to function as a society, as a civilized first world society. So again, he's making a straw man argument. Nobody's arguing that we don't need institutions here.
I know it's very top level, but I think starting from a point of taking away power for the sake of taking it, or defunding for the sake of defunding, or Rick Perry just listing off departments famously and forgetting which ones that they were that he wanted to eliminate. I think it's backwards, and I think the global successes, the countries with the best business environments and the highest standards of living, show us that that's the right approach, not this let's start closing down departments to some degree the way Project 2025 wants to do.
So the question that I would have for you is that in the same branch of concern that the executive branch of the United States is increasing its amount of authority unilaterally, that you would also increase the amount of authority with the executive branch through these bureaucratic organizations that answer to the executive branch? What authority needs to be delegated?
That's not at all what I said. No, certainly not. But my point, as I mentioned, was a broader one. Certainly nothing in what I said is give the president as an individual more power. And in fact, if we learned anything during the Trump presidency, it's that a lot of people on the left came around to what some on the right believed, which was, hey, maybe our checks and balances aren't strong enough. Maybe we don't want so much unrestricted power. But my point was a different one. I won't make it again to not bore the audience, but it has nothing to do with presidential power.
Who appoints the bureaucratic heads of those organizations?
The president appoints some of them, but as we know now, what Project 2025 wants to change is taking what are career bureaucrats that are non-political in their public-facing roles and actually make even more of them political appointees. So it sounds like what you're advocating for, if I understand correctly, is going the opposite way of what Trump and Heritage and Project 2025 have said they want to do. If I understand correctly, I'm sure you denounce Project 2025 on that basis, right?
I'm confused as to what it is that you're suggesting Project 2025 has to do with my question regarding the administrative state appointed by the President of the United States.
I'm confused as to why you don't think that taking the institutions that we have, which you say are already too politicized, and saying let's replace the career bureaucrats with overtly political actors, how that gets us any closer to the scenario you're drawing up.
I didn't say replace bureaucrats with different bureaucrats. I said reduce the number of bureaucrats. I don't know where you're getting like that I'm throwing down the Uno wild card and just changing the color of the bureaucrats. That's not it at all. I suggested that the administrative state, the Bismarckian progressivism that failed in Germany, is failing in the United States. And that by suggesting that the sciences are necessary, that anthropologically, psychologically, sociologically, that as society grows, we need to delegate authority is very, very weird and strangely 20th century dystopian.
Well, we do need to delegate some authority. I appreciate this guy's argument, and I like how he's coming back against David Pakman. So let's keep going. But I mean, I agree, obviously, that we need government of some kind. But yes, it needs to be greatly reduced.
All right, guys, we're going to go back to the calls. Mike is in Old Township, New Jersey. Democrat.
Okay. So it looks like that conversation is getting completely sidetracked. But I like the way that this guy pushed back against David Pakman, who is always just squirming and slurming. Is that even a word, slurming? Just squirming and squeezing his way through, always trying to be, kind of clever. And, if I am understanding you correctly in all this, he's always trying to be polite, but just completely misrepresenting the other person's point of view. And then, like, this guy just told him to his face. He said, that's not what I said at all. No, I don't want to change an non-political bureaucrat for a political bureaucrat. I just want to get rid of as many bureaucrats as possible. How difficult is that to understand, David Pakman? And who isn't against that? And why would you be against that? Yeah, why would anybody be against it except to be contrarian just for the sake of being contrarian? Maybe David Pakman will explain one day. Let me know what you thought. Excuse me. Let me know what you think in the comments. I have been reading all the comments recently and been replying to quite a few. I really do appreciate it. And if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. It helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.